Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia, and today I just want to go over my November reading recap, and this should be a quick one. I did not read a lot in November for a couple of reasons. I definitely fell into an Iron Flame reading slump. If you don't know Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, we might live under the same rock or we might be neighbors. Because I generally am unaware of what is happening on the internet as well. I don't know, November was a very slow month for me. I think I've read so much. The summer into the fall, I think my brain just kind of like needed a minute. So without further ado, let's jump on right in. So in November, I finished the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black. And the last two books are The Wicked King by Holly Black and The Queen of Nothing, also by Holly Black. And like I mentioned in the intro, I also read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. So first we're going to start with The Wicked King. For those who don't know, The Wicked King is the second book in the Folk of Air series by Holly Black. The first book is The Cruel Prince. It's very YA, it's not very smutty, and Cardan is such a little bitch if I'm being honest. So in the second book, Jude has bound Cardan to her after Oak has crowned him king in order to protect Oak because he is the heir to the crown. There's a lot of politics in this book, especially as Jude enters her role as Cardan's seneschal or second in command. And Jude is also betrayed by someone close to her, and the feelings between Jude and Cardan honestly start to grow a lot more in this book. I feel like in the first book they just kind of bully each other and it's not that cute, but I feel like with The Wicked King they really start to admit to themselves how they're feeling, but like they also start to show how they're feeling in front of other people in the court, and I think it's starting to become a really interesting dynamic. And this book is where the characters kind of started to grow on me. I'm gonna read off my notes here, and I wrote that I really liked this book. It's not my favorite in the series. Cardan is still a little bit of a bully, but he's also very salty, and I can't really blame him if someone tricked me and made me have to command them for a year, and I'd be pretty mean too. Jude evolves a lot in this book. She has Cardan on a very, very short leash in this book. And even though, what I do like, is that even though she has him under her command, so to speak, he's not really. Like, at this point, he is pretty much a soft boy for Jude. And he would do anything she asked, whether she asked him or commanded him. So I do find that dynamic very interesting. Something else I do also like is how Jude just keeps elevating her status in each book. The Cruel Prince in book 1, she just wants to be a warrior. And then in book 2, she's Cardan's seneschal. And in book 3, which I'll get to in a minute, The Queen of Nothing, homegirl is literally queen. Okay, we stan a girl with ambition. As for some of the other characters, the obvious, but I don't like Locke. Taryn can also go rot in a hole. I want to protect Vivi with everything that I am because I love her and I think she is one of the best characters ever, next to Oak, who is very innocent. And I don't know if it's just me, maybe because I have a background in working with children, but Oak is 8, but Holly Black writes him like he's 5. I don't think I've ever carried an 8-year-old in my arms. I've carried a 5-year-old in my arms, never carried an 8-year-old in my arms. So maybe he's a very small 8-year-old because he does have hooves, I believe. And like I said earlier, this series is very YA. There's not a lot of spice, especially in the first 2 books. There's a little bit of kissing and there's a little bit of romance, but it's not spicy, it's not smutty. If that's what you're thinking, like, just look somewhere else. I read this book based on past hype, and there's still kind of a little bit of an ebb and flow of the hype around this series, and I decided to just go for it. And honestly, it kind of reminds me of the Kingdom of the Wicked series, how like the first book kind of sucked, but the second and the third book kind of made up for it, because I did enjoy this book. Like I said, it's not my favorite. It does get better. It does pass some of the vibe check. So if I had to give this book a rating, I feel like Cruel Prince is probably like a 3-star. It's 50-50. I liked it, but I didn't. And then I would give The Wicked King, I'd say 3.5 out of 5, just because it gets a little better, but it's not fully there, because Jude is very ambitious and she's very smart, but sometimes she's so stupid. And I also just love, I've seen this pointed out online, so this is not an original thought. I just don't know who to credit because I've seen multiple people say it. But I just love how other books like ACOTAR, for example, you get these like 500-year-old fae men, and Holly Black is out here being like, this is Cardan, he's 19, he's an idiot, and he has a tail, have fun. And it's just like, okay. So I don't know if Cardan will be a book boyfriend because I think he is far too young for me. My younger brother is 21 and he's an idiot. and I don't think I could go for Carden, but he would be a book boyfriend had I read this when I was younger and closer in age with him. So 3.5 out of 5, I'll leave it there. Also, when I talked about The Cruel Prince in my October reading recap, if I gave that book higher than a 3-star, I lied. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna put it out there because, like I said, I have the memory of a squirrel, and my thoughts and feelings and opinions are subject to change at literally any time. So don't hold me to anything. But for my November reading recap, Cruel Prince gets 3 out of 5. The Wicked King gets 3.5 out of 5. Alright, so unsurprisingly, the next book on the list is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. And this book is the final book in the Folk of Air series, and this book is my favorite book. I'm pointing to my iPad. I know that was probably very unclear. So in the final book of the series, Jude has moved up to Queen of Elfame, though she is exiled. Despite her exile, Taryn shows up needing Jude's help, and so she ventures back into Elfame and straight into a brewing war being stirred up by none other than the man himself, Maddox. So like I said, this book was my absolute favorite of the series. The first 2 books I listened to as audiobooks, and the third book I read as an ebook. I don't really think it makes a difference, but I literally started this book, and just a little backstory. The main reason I read it as an ebook was because on Libby, the audiobook was like an 8-week wait, but the ebook was available to borrow now. So I was like, fuck it. Anyway, back to the main point. I started reading The Queen of Nothing Saturday evening, and I had finished it by Sunday morning. I was into it. And it's funny because when I read that Taryn comes to Jude needing help, I was like, my petty ass would not. Jude is better than me, because I would have been like, you're on your own, sis. Oh, what are my notes on this one? So this book is without a doubt my favorite, like I already mentioned. Jude and Carden grow up a lot in this book. They still mess with each other and they still play like tricks on each other, you know, but by the Wicked Queen, fully in love with each other. Like, there is no denying it. I really just love them. They're just my sweet little cinnamon rolls, and I love them. We do get a bit of retribution and justice at the end, but it feels very YA retribution and justice, because I would have been like, off with their head. And I will say, I still don't like Taryn. You know, I know she has a little bit of a redemption arc, I suppose, whatever that was, but I still don't like her. I'm still a Vivi stan. I love Vivi so much. I need to protect her at all costs. And this is why this book is my favorite. Because Carden writes Jude letters. And yes, I had to find them online. I didn't buy the Barnes & Noble special edition, which I hate that they do that, but they still do that. I still have yet to read Xaden's letters in Iron Flame, so I gotta go skulk the internet for those, because those were apparently only in the special edition. But what elevates Carden to automatic book boyfriend status is the fact that he wrote letters to Jude. I also wrote, this book is without a doubt a vibe. It gave appropriate enemies to lovers. It gave taking the high road. It gave good vibe 2 thumbs up. So I would give this book 4.5 out of 5. It jumps up a lot higher than The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King, primarily because I really did like the dynamic in this book. There was a lot less bullying, which I enjoyed. There's a lot of bullying in The Cruel Prince, which, like I said, it's not my thing. I'm not into it. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5 for this one. And the series as a whole, I think, has to be a 4 out of 5 stars, just because the first 2 books are 3 and 3.5 respectively. And then even though the third book does jump up to a 4.5, I think as a whole series, I think 4 out of 5 stars is very much beyond fair. And the last book on the list is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. But in Iron Flame, we pretty much pick up after the events of Fourth Wayne. Violet has gone through a lot and is back at the War College. And now she's in her second year as a writer, which proves even more challenging than the first. If she thought surviving her first year was hard, welcome to second year. And Violet's world is pretty much rocked at this point, and her relationship with Xaden has taken a nosedive. But beyond their personal issues, war is brewing, and Violet must decide where she stands and who she stands with. And I actually don't have notes for this book. I needed a minute. I think, as you can tell, I just was so emotionally drained by this book. I don't even know where to start. So to keep it brief, I fell in love with Xaden all over again in this book. And it's funny because in the first book, I was annoyed with him and I liked Violet. And in this book, I like him and I'm annoyed with Violet. There were just a lot of things that I guess I didn't like. I didn't really like how each chapter pretty much ends in a cut to black scene. Like, that was really, really annoying. And it made a lot of parts in the book feel choppy when they weren't really choppy. I think the easiest way to describe it without spoiling it is the whole book. 90% of it, Violet is like, tell me everything. You can't lie to me. You have to be honest with me about everything. Like, you take a shit at 3 p.m. on Thursday, I have to know. And then towards the end, Xaden tells her the truth, that something no one else knows, and it's a really big deal for him to tell her. And she's just like, why did you tell me? You shouldn't have told me that. I have no words. But anyway, let me move on before I complain about this for 10 minutes. There was a lot of really good tension. I really liked that we got a little bit more of the side characters. We also get a little bit more of like the history. There's a lot more world building in this book. And that's also primarily because we've left the war college. Like, Xaden is running a fucking rebellion. So obviously we couldn't stay at the college and, you know, have him still be this like secret shadow daddy. The dragons, perfection. The tension, perfection. Xaden, perfection. Politics, perfection. I didn't really like the ending. I don't want to say too much without spoiling it for people who may have not read it yet, but I just will say that it was very emotionally draining. I don't want to give it 4 stars, so I'm gonna say maybe like 3.75. It was better than 3.5, but it wasn't a 4, because even if we move away from the plot and the characters, there were a lot of editing mistakes. It just feels like this book was super rushed, and I mean, it came out 6 months after Fourth Wing, so more than likely it was rushed, because I don't know, obviously, if Rebecca Yarros had Iron Flame kind of already penned out before Fourth Wing was published or shortly after Fourth Wing was published, but either way, 6 months isn't a lot of time, and I just feel like it was very rushed and it needed more attention. It needed more time. I would have gladly waited a few more months and to have a book that I think is like 150 pages longer than the first book, but it's a lot more draining than the first book, and there's so many more mistakes than the first book. So, and this is also a 5-book series, so yeah, Iron Flame, a 3.75 out of 5. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's kind of in the middle as well. All right, so there you have it, my November reading recap. Like I said, Iron Flame just put me in such a slump, and just beware, buyer beware. It's a lot. The Folk of Air series, I really enjoyed the first book. It just felt like a book you just had to get through, and then you can enjoy the rest of the series. But I definitely would recommend it if you like kind of like YA fantasy romance. If you could consider it fantasy romance, more like fantasy with a romance subplot, but you don't like a lot of spice in your books, I would definitely recommend the Folk of Air series. And yeah, I'm not reading too much now. Currently I'm reading A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed, which I'm reading really slowly because I think I started that book in October, so yikes. And my hold for Powerless by Lauren Roberts also just came in on Libby, so that's exciting. I'm very excited for that one. I've heard pretty much good things. I think I've only read a couple of like low star reviews, so I'm very excited for that one. And I also finally joined NetGalley and I got my first arc, which is very exciting. I know I'm very late to the party. People have been using NetGalley forever, but I'm excited because it's new to me. I don't want to talk too much about the arc though, only because the book publishes in March, so I can't really post anything until February, and it's the end of November. So with that being said, something to look forward to. I hope November is a little bit more of a better reading month and we kind of get back on track. I've completed my reading goal for the year, so I'm not really reading for my reading goal as much, but hopefully I find some books that I get